Don't make the decision for yourself. All those things are taken into consideration when reviewing the candidate's application.
Most pilots don't understand what career opportunities are available in the world of aviation. They're making career decisions based on advice from friends or posts on internet forums, meaning they're taking huge risks with their livelihood without having all the details. This podcast was created to help you understand the aviation industry so you can find your dream job. Let's get ready for Pushback. Here's your host and my dad, Nick Fialka.
Hey, pilot. Welcome to Ready for Pushback. I'm Nick Fialka. This is Ready for Pushback, the best podcast in aviation. And I am so glad that you are here listening to me. And what are we talking about today? One big company, United Airlines. I have Justin Ritter back with me. He's a director of pilot hiring at United. And we go through lots of cool information. We talked about what happened in 2023 and how their hiring numbers looked. We talk about 2024. We talk about, for those military aviators, the United, the Military Pathways Program. And we also talk about experiences that he's had with interviewees and tips and tricks for what to do and what not to do. So I hope you really enjoy it. Also, bonus, I want you to write this down. Put it on pause, go get yourself a pen, and here we go. I'll wait for you. Okay, now you're back on March 8th. March 8th at 8 p.m., I want you to sign up for the webinar that Justin and I are going to be doing. I'm going to be answering, well, I'm not going to be answering anything. Justin's going to be answering all of your questions. You're going to have an opportunity to pitch questions to Justin. I will ask them to him. He will answer them and go down the path there. And so we're doing this a couple weeks before Women in Aviation. And Women in Aviation is 21st, 22nd of March. And on March 8th, is this big push for this webinar that we're going to be doing. And it's also going to help you get prepared because Justin and his team are going to be doing pilot interviews at Women in Aviation. So you want to make sure that you're ready. You can log in, you can sign up on the link that I'll have in the show notes. And our Spitfire team has been working a lot with United to make sure that we can get you guys ready. If you're not already a Spitfire client, you need to hop over there. You can use the code R4P, and that will be your 10% discount for all things Spitfire. And on my website, of course, spitfireelite.com. So remember, March 8th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be with Justin and you, and we are going to get all your questions answered. It's going to be a lot of fun, and Justin's been really gracious. The Women in Aviation Conference is going to be huge, and so you need to do everything you can to make sure that you are prepared. So if you know somebody that is crazy enough not to listen to this podcast, you should tell them to go ahead and listen to this, and also get the link and sign up. All right, man. Ladies, sit back, relax. Let's get ready for Pushback. All right. We are back with Justin Ritter, one of my favorite people. Justin, thank you so much for joining us and talking about United today. How are you, my man?
I'm doing very well. Thanks so much for having me. And it's going to be a pleasure to speak with you about some of the cool stuff we're doing here at United.
You are doing so much. And this is so exciting to me. And it's been 2023 was such a crazy year. And we talk often about the things that are happening in the industry and the people that are in and out. And it's just 2023 seemed like just controlled chaos. And I'm sure it was for you guys. How about just wrapping it up? Tell me kind of what 2023 was and meant for United Airlines.
Yeah, that's a great question. So 2023 was a wild year for us. It was the second highest number of pilots that we've hired in our history. In 2023, we hired 2,348 new pilots here at United. from a variety of different places all across the industry. And it was just slightly less than the number of pilots that we hired in 2022, which was 2,438. And so, really, in the last 2 years, we've hired just under 5,000 new pilots at United, which prior to COVID or prior to the immense amount of growth that we were experiencing, that would have been unimaginable, right? Hiring so many pilots and then putting them through our training system here in Denver as well. So it was a very, very challenging and stressful and busy year for us. Not only that, but we also launched a couple new programs. We launched our military program. We launched a program at SkyWest. We continue to develop and mature our Aviate program. And then finally, we started doing interviews and conditional job offers at some of the conferences as well. So we started at OBAP, we did interviews and CGOs at LPA, and then rounded it out at RTAG as well. So it was a very busy year. I think I'm losing some hair over it, but I think overall we accomplished our goal and our mission, and we're looking for 2024 as well.
If you could see a picture of me and Justin together, you would know we both don't have much in the way of hair.
Yes.
So do you, with the hiring at the conferences, do you feel like that was fruitful? I know you guys had you had to do a lot of research to get things organized to be able to do it, to change the paradigm. Do you feel like that there was a lot of fruit in that?
Absolutely. Actually, in fact, our conference interviews had higher pass rates than they do at our normal interview days here in Denver. We just met some exceptionally qualified candidates at these events who may not have had the experience or the ability to come to Denver and do an interview over here as well. So we provided a lot of opportunity for some great experienced pilots, and then we're able to hire at a really great rate. And so because of that, we are planning on doing interviews at most of the conferences again here in 2024 as well.
Okay, that's awesome. I know you've got a lot of things happen on the pilot front. You guys got a new contract and an industry-leading contract, and that probably really spiked the interest. And I saw at the end of the year, new hire captains like showing up on drops on day one of NDOC, man. Tell me about that.
Absolutely, yeah. So in the first day of basic indoctrination here at United, a pilot can bid obviously for a certain fleet, a certain base as well, but we have added the ability to bid for seats as well. And so in basic indoc, we have provided the ability to bid for captain positions for those that qualify under 121.436 rules. So they must have 1,000 hours of 121 time or a combination of military 121 or so on and so forth. So it's pretty convoluted, but it's a really great opportunity for those that are a little bit later in their career or those that want to become a captain here at United. And as you mentioned, that industry leading contract as well, it's also a way to get paid just an amazing amount of money with that contract as well. And so we have been seeing a lot of our more senior folks in class bidding for those captain positions as well. And they're typically going at bases which we don't offer normally to first officers. So, typically we've been seeing a lot of new hires go to San Francisco or Newark on the wide bodies or the 7-3. But with the captain jobs, we're seeing people go to Chicago, to Denver, and to Houston as 737 captains as well. So it is a great process. Now, it's not that you come to BI and then you automatically become a captain on day one. You do have to spend a year flying as a first officer at United, get your 500 hours, then come back to Denver for your captain upgrade before you actually finally become a captain. So while you are awarded a captain spot in training, you do not become a captain until at least 1 year after you get to United.
It's wild. It's so crazy. It's wild. What a time to be alive.
Never in my life did I ever suspect we'd be doing this. So it has been really, really fascinating to see the bidding behaviors. But I think it's also a great opportunity as well. I mean, to be a captain at United Airlines, one of the legacy carriers in the United States, it is a huge honor, and to be able to provide that to some of our new hires has been exceptional.
Yeah, and so I want you to listen to what Justin talked about, how that works, because they don't just throw you out there to the wolves. The first thing you have to do is get some seasoning, right? Mm-hmm. So, and it's very like he mentioned the Part 121 rules. It's super convoluted about the way you add up your hours, whether you're military or working in the 121 world ahead of time. So you got to get that all sorted out first. Mm-hmm. But the way you have a plan and not just throw them to the wolves, like there's seasoning that happens, and you get to understand how United does their thing and how you do your checklist and who to reach out to, in case. And that is such a good thing because it gives you perspective on both seats as well. And that's just a smart way to do it. So I can appreciate that. And gosh, man, what a thing. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really cool.
It is. One of the other things you kicked off last year was the military pathway program. There's been, I'm clearly a military guy, and a lot of people that listen to the show are also military people, and they're highly interested in it. There's you have a document that's a lot of words and that you can read about all the different ins and outs. But can you break it down and so that the pilot that's listening that's currently in the military thinking about coming to United and has it on their horizon, why is that advantageous to them?
That's a great question. Yeah. So basically, the military program, which we call UMPP or United Military Pilot Program, is a pathway for aviators in the military to get a CGO at United to then be able to transition to the civilian flying world once they separate from the military. And really the highlight of it is that we're looking for current military aviators who have greater than 6 months of time before they separate from the military. And so, there is no cap to it. If you're separating from the military in 5 years, or greater, you can still apply for this program so long as you're not separating with less than 6 months. In addition, you must have your military wings, but we do not require you to have a fully unrestricted ATP at the time of application as well. So again, it's a great way to provide that security, I think, to a lot of these military aviators who, they're getting out in a year, maybe 2 years, and they just don't know where to go. They want some assurances when they do get out on where to go. They can apply to our military program and come here to United. Now, we have received a tremendous amount of interest. We've received thousands of applications for it, which I think is just incredible. And we actually are beginning interviews for the military program in the last week of February. So that's when those interviews begin for the first cadre of individuals coming through our program.
Okay. Well, have you already sent out emails to them telling them to stand by? They're gonna start interviewing.
We have, yeah. So we have begun sending out the Hogan assessment, and those that have completed it have already gotten invitations to interview. And I believe at this point we have greater than 50 people already scheduled right now for February. But we do plan on doing interviews every single month for the foreseeable future to make sure that we provide this opportunity to those military members.
Are you going to intermix them with the interviewees that are there that are just coming off the streets, or is it just going to be like, hey, today's UMPP day?
That's a great question. Yeah, no. So we typically have a week where we do UMPP interviews, but they will be intermingled with other individuals that will be coming through our program as well. So they'll have the opportunity to speak to civilian pilots or other pilots that are coming to United maybe a little bit sooner than they are as well.
That's good. And for those of you going to interview, my little pro tip is when you're done and when you're meeting everybody and all that, grab everybody's phone number and get a little WhatsApp group going. That way you can kind of keep connected and keep the information flow going between yourselves. I still talk to the people that I interviewed with at my company, and I love it. It's just it's a fun thing, and you just get to meet new friends all the time.
Absolutely. No, and I think that's a good idea too. So you can talk to each other and figure out what their plans are and how their experience was, and if you are successful too, plan what your life's going to be like here at United as well. So it's a really
and if
really
you're
cool
UMPP
idea.
and you're a couple years out and you've got people that interviewed the same day that are already going to go ahead and start relatively quickly, it just gives you so much of an advantage to understand what your life is turning into. It's a really cool thing.
Definitely. Yeah.
So with the UMPP, right, you said they have to have their wings. Now, you said they don't have to have ATP mins yet, but they have to be headed that way, right? Like are there requirements they have to have their 1,500 hours by the time they transition? They transition,
so at the time of interview, they don't need to have those qualifications. All they really need to have is their wings. They could have, very little hours. But once they transition, then they must have that unrestricted ATP and meet all of our regular requirements as well.
Got it. So if you are a current helicopter pilot, you're going to have to have fixed wing stuff built in already. Is that such that it has to? They are they are stating that, hey, well, I'll have all these hours by the time I get out of the military, or is it more hey, I'm a helicopter guy, I want to go into the fixed wing world, I'm going to use my GI Bill and kind of an RTP program. Are there differences between the two?
Yeah, so we obviously consider helicopter time or rotor time in your overall total time package, but we are looking for people at the time of transition to have a couple hundred hours of fixed wing time as well. So we do expect that if you do have some rotor time, that you do have some fixed wing time before you fully transition to United.
Got it. And I guess all that gets hashed out before you show up for the interview.
It should, yes.
Okay. Awesome. I reached out on a lot of my different socials and said, hey, what questions do you want me to ask Justin? And man, I got so many about the UMPP and, hey, when are we going to start interviewing? When are we going to, this thing going to start moving forward? And it's great that it's exciting because this is going to be released right about the time you start bringing in those candidates and interviewing them. So you're going to be doing that monthly. You're going to be bringing in candidates to interview for UMPP.
Yeah, starting in March, we'll actually be doing every single day that we do interviews in Denver. There will be a certain number of slots that are dedicated solely to UMPP candidates as well. And so this first week, as we kind of kick off the interview program, once we go into March and then the subsequent months, there'll be opportunity to interview every single day that we do interviews here in Denver for UMPP candidates. So we are reviewing all the applications that we can right now. We're processing people as quickly as possible. I know the application launched, I believe, in November, if I'm not mistaken. But there was a bit of a time frame before. I'm sorry, the application launched in September, but there was some time before we started processing people through the system. And that's because we built a completely new and different interview process for these UMPP candidates, with the understanding that many of them are military pilots. We want to make sure that our recruiters and our pilot interviewers can speak the language of a military pilot and can be able to communicate with them properly and provide a good experience with them, so we can best understand what their flying experience and what their experience in the military has been.
Are you going? That's interesting. Talk to me about the approach you need to take with a person that is actively flying. That is, 5 years out. Honestly, man, that's a long way away. There's a lot of life left to live.
It's very interesting because we're going to be interviewing people that have been military aviators for many years, have 3,000 hours, all fixed wing time flying, transport aircraft, and then we're going to be interviewing individuals who just got their wings, a couple months ago. And so that experience is going to be very, very different. And their interview should also be different as well, right? The way you talk to a pilot who's been flying for many years is going to be different from that just, is just new in the process. Similar to, when I think about the civilian world too, right? Talking to someone who's been flying at another 121 carrier for the past 10 years versus maybe an Aviate candidate who just got their private, right? That's going to be a very different conversation. So we wanted to make sure that we provide that experience and we are able to best understand what they're telling us and evaluate them as such as well.
I think you should have me up there, and we'll get some markers and a whiteboard, and we'll get like the 29-year-old kid, and we'll make him do an entire formation brief or some kind of BFM or something, just for 2 hours, but have to say it in civilian speak. And
that might be a little too challenging for some folks. We want to make sure that we don't scare them away too quickly.
It'd be amazing. Oh my gosh. Like a large force CSAR exercise. Oh my God. Anyway, oh gosh. Now I'm getting anxiety about thinking about my military past. Lord have mercy. I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore. Man, okay, so the military pathway wasn't the only thing you guys kicked off. You also kicked off a new alliance with SkyWest, which is not too far headquartered, not too far away from you guys. Yeah, will you break that down and talk to me about the interactions and the decision to make this agreement with SkyWest?
Absolutely, yeah. So we currently have our Aviate program, which is a program where new pilots or early career pilots can apply and get that CJO with United. But we wanted to create a program also with SkyWest as well, in which they can offer that opportunity to their pilots, and we can continue to hire great quality pilots from SkyWest. And so The opportunity is that if you are a pilot at SkyWest with at least 400 hours, you can apply for this program and get your CJO early as well. And so those assurances are really, I think, important for a lot of pilots. It would be for myself as well, right? I go to SkyWest, I'm having a great career there, but I do know I want to come to United eventually. I can apply for this program and then get a confirmed CJO saying, yes, you will come to United once you meet these requirements that we have set out for you. So the requirements are very similar to Aviate, in which we look for about 1,600 hours of PIC time at SkyWest before you transition to United. But once you hit those transition requirements, that you are coming to United. That interview is your United interview. There's no additional interviews you have to complete after that point as well. So again, if you're a pilot at SkyWest looking for some assurances, looking for a secure and dedicated pathway to a legacy carrier, this is a great option to get that CGO early in your career as well.
And it's very distinctly different from Aviate, though.
Correct. Yeah, correct. It's only for SkyWest pilots at this point.
Okay. At this point, you got thoughts about other places?
You never know. We have always come up with new programs here at United, so you never know where this is going to go next.
Do you have, is it you and a couple people sitting around trying to figure out like how we're going to bring as many people in as we need, or how do these decisions get made?
Yeah, so they are made with a whole bunch of people. And in fact, when we were talking about the SkyWest program, a bunch of us went up to Willis Tower in Chicago, where our headquarters is, and we sat in a room. We said, "What can we do? What can we do to provide a strong pathway for these pilots, and how can we make it competitive and secure for them as well?" And so, when making these decisions, I'm a very small cog in a very large wheel. But these decisions come organically from United employees ourselves.
Yeah, that's cool. I've got so many ideas.
We love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would also say like hats off, because you're very receptive to feedback. You guys are very much trying to be agile and pivot and find where you can grow the most. And so that kind of leads us into what I feel like is probably one of the most intense years that we're getting ready to step into in 2024. In my mind, 2024 is just the competition is exponentially higher, because you have the ULCCs that are basically not hiring. You have you have the JetBlue Spirit merger that God knows what's going on with that. You've seen the other two legacies have reduced the number of pilots that they're going to take in for the year. Like they've publicly come out with those numbers. I think Delta's down like 20% or something like that. And so one of the things you have, especially if there's a bankruptcy this year, there's going to be a market flooded with experienced pilots and people with Airbus type ratings and 737 type ratings and all these things coming forward. And man, there is a high bar this year, and the competition is insanely fierce for 2024. That's what I think. Yeah. What do you think?
No, that's a great point. We're seeing that a lot reflected in our current candidate pool, right? We have seen an increased number of applications that are coming through every single week, a pretty significant increase week over week as compared to what we're seeing, I think, at the beginning of 2023 or the middle of 2023. There is right now, I think, and it's kind of funny to say, because I think in years past or prior to COVID, we'd be like, oh, we're doing 900 hires this year. This is a banner year, and the average number of hours of an applicant would be 5, 6, 7,000 hours is what we're looking for an average competitive candidate. And so to think that we are stabilizing, and we're not quite obviously returning to that. In 2024, we're still looking to hire, we stated publicly, around 2,000 more pilots here at United Airlines. So, it's still business as usual, quite frankly, as for the last couple of years to this year. But the market is tightening. I think for a lot of the pilot candidates themselves, if our competitors are hiring less, if other airlines aren't hiring little to any pilots, the competition among those who apply to United is obviously going to increase. And so, our recommendation is for everyone: number one, get your application submitted, and number two, make sure you find a way to differentiate yourself among those candidates, because because we want to see not just how many hours you've flown or where you have flown. We want to see a differentiation of what makes you different, what makes you a competitive candidate outside your flying experience to be a good pilot here at United Airlines as well.
Can you think of a recent example of somebody that was just really interestingly, brought that extra bit?
Yeah, absolutely. We've actually hired a couple pilots who have flown Air Force One, I think, in the past, and so that is again not required. You're not required to fly Air Force One to fly United,
Dang,
but
that's a high bar, dude.
it's really cool though, right? It's really cool
Yeah.
to see that variety of experience. Or, we've seen civilian pilots who've flown overseas, right? We've seen some really interesting Emirates pilots that have applied to us here recently as well. So just those kind of things are very interesting. And I think also very importantly, we are going to continue to hire and offer captain vacancies in basic indoc. And so individuals who are excited and who want to be a captain here at United on the 737 in Newark are also going to be very, very competitive for us as well.
Yeah, man. What a time to live in Newark. Never thought I'd say that.
Exactly.
Hey, pilot, did you just get a new conditional job offer? Are you getting out of the military and going to move your family across the country? Are you going to move in base somewhere, or are you going to go out to find that second home that you've been looking for? Well, I want you to stop right now, pick up the phone, and call Marty and the team at Trident Home Loans. It's an organization that's run by pilots. They understand pilot pay. They understand contracts. They understand military. They have the best VA loans in the United States. Marty and his team have been doing mortgages for years. They've been doing my mortgages for years. I trust him and his team more than any other organization. I challenge you to get a better deal anywhere else. Go ahead, reach out, get a mortgage quote, and then call Marty and his team. They will walk you through the process and show you how competitive their rates are. So go right now, TridentHomeLoans.com, and check them out. Timothy P. Pope is a certified financial planner dedicated to guiding professional pilots through smart financial planning. Whether it's saving for retirement, investment management, a seamless military transition, or strategic tax planning, Tim is your trusted financial partner. Also, you can join Tim as he leads engaging discussions on personal finance and strategies for professional pilots on the brand new Pilot Money podcast. Timothy P. Pope, helping professional pilots make the most out of life. You're going to keep hiring at conferences this year?
We are, yeah. So we're still planning on doing interviews at the many different conferences we're going to this year. We're planning on attending all of them as we did last year as well. And we are planning on doing interviews at most of them. I don't think we're going to do interviews at some of the smaller ones or the shorter ones, but we do plan on doing interviews and application review and meet and greets at the booth at all of our conferences coming up this year as well.
Hopefully I can get this show out before NGPA, which is 15th and 16th of February. And that you guys are the title sponsor. Mm-hmm. When you decide to sponsor events and stuff like that, like what is the process? What is the mindset of, cause you could certainly, now you're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You could certainly like throw down all the money for all the things, but you choose. So how do you choose?
Yeah, that's a good question. We value our partnerships with all of our conference communities, and we are the title sponsor of NGP this year. But last year we were the title sponsor of OBAP, of LPA, and so we're looking to do that for as many different organizations as we possibly can as well, right? But also I think it's a reflection of who we are as a company. We want to ensure that we provide opportunity in the flight deck for all the different groups and organizations that we can, and so that's why it's very important to us for us to continue to do that as well. So we're looking forward to a lot of sponsorships this year as well. But not only are we sponsoring, I think, the conferences, we also have been sponsoring a ton of scholarships as well. So we provided last year, I don't know the exact number, but millions of dollars worth of scholarships to individuals to go to the United Aviation Academy or to other flight schools across the country as well. So again, providing that opportunity has always been very important for us here at United.
And those are through the organizations, right?
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if the pilot that's listening is working to become a professional pilot or has dreams of being in Justin's shoes one day and working with pilot hiring and doing the things at a legacy airline, I highly recommend that you find that organization that you link up with, that you can pour yourself into. And eh, eh, the people that get involved with those organizations, um, there's a love of what we do as our job, but also a love of people too. I think a lot about Claudia and Trevor at
Mm.
LPA, right? And just they. I mean, Claudia's on your hiring team, and she's the
Yeah.
president of Latino Pilots Association, and that's
Yeah.
it's a lot of work. It's not no work. It's a ton of work.
Hmm.
So find something that you can separate. Like that's a way to separate yourself, right? Get involved. Um,
Absolutely.
do you see people that do you see a kind of a correlation between people that volunteer with these organizations and just an identification that like, hey, this is you certainly belong in a company like ours.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, those that help their communities or those that go above and beyond for organization, it doesn't have to be one of these conference organizations. Well, it could be one that's local to their community. Typically, do better in the application review as well as the interview as well. Again, that's just another way to differentiate yourself because, again, this is going to sound a little cheesy, but our mission is connecting people, uniting the world. And so, if we see people who live that mission in reflecting in their application or their resume or their experience, that's important to us, and that is a differentiator in what we look for here at United.
And to talk about that, if you're listening to this podcast and you've got a United interview set up, hopefully you're got my guys at Spitfire doing your interview prep, but we're helping you be authentic because the worst thing would be to just come in and start using those lines like uniting the world and all these robotic canned lines instead of who you truly are. And because they're not hiring advertisements, they're not hiring commercials, they're not hiring taglines, they're hiring people with a story and a diverse culture that is representative of the customers that we serve, right?
That's correct. Yeah. And I think what's really important is that our recruiters and pilot interviewers, we know our taglines, right? We know who our CEO is. We know the routes that we fly. We know why we fly. We want to hear about you and what you do and what you bring to the table here at United as well, right? We have just over 16,000 pilots right now, and each one of them has a very unique and very different story. And so we want you to share yours too, right? Don't just tell us what we already know.
Yeah. Oh man. Gosh, that's probably one of the harder parts of being on the interview team is we hearing similar things like that day in and day out. So hats off to
Yeah.
those guys.
But I will say though, we have been very impressed by some of the interviews we have conducted recently. We've heard a lot of really great stories, candidates who are sharing, their experience with us and why they want to come to United, in a really exceptional way. So I do have to say it has been a pleasure hearing some of these stories recently.
Has anybody ever brought up the fact that they heard you on Ready for Pushback?
Many times, yes. So I appreciate it too. I'm like, I feel kind of famous these days too. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love that. It's so good. All right, let's say that you're new to the show and this is your first episode and you just saw it said director of pilot hiring Justin Ritter, but you didn't listen to last year's episode. Will you walk through a day in the life of what it's like to be an interviewee and walk through what it's like?
Absolutely, yeah. So the first thing that everyone has to do is they must submit their application on our website. It's pilothiring.united.com. It is not an easy application to fill out. I'll be the first to tell you. There's a lot of different steps you have to go through. You have to list your entire work experience, your flight history, what you've done. So getting through that portion is probably one of the most challenging things anyone can go through.
Will you mention the part about the flying the jet and the hours and the breakout of that? That's really important to think about before you even start the application.
Absolutely. So on your application, we are very focused on your flying experience and the number of hours you have in certain jets at different operators. So when you do list out your flight time, you must list out the aircraft that you flew, the type of flying, whether it was 121, 135, 91, 61, all those kind of stuff, as well as the operator as well. So if you flew for another 121 carrier and you flew the let's just call it the CRJ 700. You must detail them. You must detail the number of hours you've flown there, PIC, SIC, as well as who you flew it for as well. So it can be a little complicated. So my recommendation is always just, look through that logbook, really start segmenting out the different types of flying you've flown. I've seen people go as extreme as they have 1 hour in the Cirrus, and they say, I flew the Cirrus for 1 hour, and they put it down there as well. So I'm not necessarily saying you have to do all of that, but it should be obviously within range of whatever you have in your logbook as well. So,
But I'll say details matter,
yes.
right?
Details are very important for us here at United. And then we also obviously have you list any check ride failures, any removal of flying status on your application as well. And this is always kind of a tricky thing too, right? We want you to be truthful and to disclose any history that you have in your application. Again, there is no magic number that we don't say, okay, people with this number will never get interviewed. We don't say people with 0 check rides are guaranteed an interview. There is no magic formula to the check ride failure process, but we just ask you to be truthful, to disclose, and to share your story with us. It doesn't have to be a dissertation. We're not looking for 70 pages as to why you failed your private, but we're looking for just give us some information. We just want to know some more about that as well.
I certainly have some episodes you can listen to where I go into excruciating detail on how to be brief.
Brief yet detailed. That's what we're looking for throughout the entirety of your application as well. It's really important to us. Once you've submitted your application, obviously, I think I mentioned before on the previous podcast, we look through every application by hand here. So one of the recruiters on the talent acquisition team here at United will physically look at your application, and we will read every single portion of it. We will read about your check ride failures. We will review your flight hours and make sure it makes sense. We'll review your previous flying experience, where you flew for, your education. We have individuals that are trained on knowing how to review an aviate application, knowing how to review a civilian application, and knowing how to review a military application as well. So whatever experience you have in your background, we make sure we know how to translate it successfully to what we're looking for here at United. And that can take a few months. That can take, greater than a few months for us to be able to get your application, particularly currently in the environment that we are, where we have a lot of really competitive applicants applying to United for the very first time. So that's very important for us. Those that are successful then are sent to our leadership inventory, or colloquially known as the Hogan. It is obviously a very important to our screening process, but it is something that we use to help guide our decisions, but it is not a knockout at this point as well. So it guides our decisions, but it is not an end-all be-all how you do on the Hogan as well. Those that complete the Hogan and get sent to us and go forward in that process are then invited to an interview. Like I said, we're doing interviews here in Denver. We do them 3 days a week here, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. And we are doing, like I said, some interviews at conferences as well. So you could be invited to either a conference interview or interviewing here in Denver. The interview process is not easy. You come here. It is about an hour and a half to 2 hour long interview. I think we block it for 2 hours, but typically it goes between an hour and a half to 2 hours. And it is a standard behavioral based interview in which you have to answer, typical HR behavioral based questions, which everyone I'm sure knows and loves, and they should be very familiar with. And that is really your place to share your story and to share your experience. The interviewers will be very thankful if you don't share typical canned responses. You share authentic, strong, and good experience stories for us. You go on a break and then you come back and then you do your technical as well, where we simulate a flight for a unit to answer some specific questions in regards to your flying experience as well. So after all of that, if you're successful, then you are then given an offer and then later assigned a class date. So right now we're hiring for classes later in, I should say, mid to late 2024. So we are hiring pretty far in advance at this point as well.
Wow, you guys really caught up. That's amazing.
We did, yes. So it's been very, it's been very, very great. We want to make sure that we also recognize too. I think one of the more challenging things is that in the past, when we were hiring at such a really quick clip and putting people in the class, 3 to 4 weeks after their interview date, that's really challenging, right? And I think about some of the military folks as well, who, this could be their very first civilian job, and having to transition in just 3 weeks is really, really tough. And so There's a fine balance, obviously, right? We don't want to offer someone a class date in December 2024 because between now and December, a lot of life can happen. But we want to make sure we give them enough time to prepare for that transition to coming to United. The 12 weeks of training, the IOE, all that information that they go through before they actually become a United pilot. It takes a long time.
Yeah, if you're hungry, if you're a younger civilian pilot and you've been wherever you are, whether you're a 135 or you're at a regional or whatever, and you're really focused on getting to United and getting there, clearly seniority is always king, right? So, what I don't know. There's certainly life experience differences with people that are double the age, right? So you got people that are in their 40s. I see in the buckets, like you've got the retired military folks that you're interviewing, which are my age, right, in their 40s. You've got that mid-career military person that's in their mid-30s, and then there's this string between like 25, 24, maybe 23. I don't know, but and 35 of a lot of that. In my mind, that brushstroke is mostly the civilian sector, right? With some exceptions here and there, second career guys and gals that are coming through, which is awesome. What if you don't have tons of life experience, years of life experience? The hours are the hours. Let the hours take care of themselves. But how do you convey yourself in a manner that is, I don't want to say stacks up to somebody that's had way more life experience, but also like I talk to a lot of people that feel like, oh, I could never do it because I could never add up to those other people that I'm sitting with. Like, what do you tell them?
So while experience is important, right? Where you have flown, what you have flown, how many hours you have, we all take that into consideration. That is important to us. Your potential and what you bring to United Airlines is what we really, really factor here as well. So I'll be the first to tell you, last year we hired people who were the age of 23 all the way to, I think, 63, 64.
You hired 64?
I believe we did. Yeah, we had a couple of 60 individuals at that age as well. So
That's awesome.
We've hired everyone between from 1,503 hours to I think I saw someone with 17, 18, 19,000 hours as well. So the experience range that we hire here at United is from literally one extreme to the other. But for us, it's all about the potential that you're going to bring here, right? What are you going to bring to United? How are you going to structure your career here at United, and what is the potential that you bring here? That is really most important to us right now.
Yeah, you need to know your why. You need to have self-awareness because I tell you, it's a challenge. You don't unless your parents are a philosopher and a psychologist, like you're probably not spending a lot of time diving deep into why you are instead of who you are. Mean, but it's important.
And I think what's really important to also convey as well is that not everyone can be chief pilot, not everyone can be an instructor. We want people that obviously want to go that route, that want to grow and expand their career. But we are also perfectly comfortable with individuals who want to be FOs in Los Angeles for the next 15 years. Like we are comfortable with however you want to structure your career. We've got a place for you here at United.
Yeah, that's. You could fly 100 hours a month, or you could fly 30 hours a month, or 20 or less. I mean, there's plenty of ways to participate and give back to the company and to the airline community that you are in. I mean, I look at myself. I don't think I'll ever be a chief pilot. I'll never be a vice president of whatever. I'm perfectly happy just being a dad and being a airline pilot and smiling and getting to know my passengers and be like really just be there to serve them. That's if I can do that, then I can pay the electric bill at the end of the month, and that's really all I want.
And we love people that are like that as well. People who want to come here, they want to fly, and they want to go home. Those are also very important to us here at United as well.
Yeah, man. Gosh. So you've got all this hiring to do. You've got your booking classes through the year, but you've got to stay on your toes and really engage. It seems like the days of just barely making that 1,500 hour limit are probably, unless you've got something superlative on your resume that brings you forward. Those it can be hard pressed to get an interview with a low time right now. Is that Am I speaking out of turn?
I think that's probably fair. I mean, like I said, we've hired and we will most likely interview people with low time, those 1,500-hour, 1,600-hour pilots. But to your point, they are going to be competing with other individuals who have now entered our pool, who have a whole lot more experience, and that's a tough competition, right? So again, to your point, those superlatives, right? What makes you important? What makes you going to be a great pilot here at United? And what potential do you bring here? We will still obviously interview and recruit those pilots, but the pool is tightened. It really has.
If I came through and interviewed and I was not successful,
Mhm.
is that it? Is there one shot, or is it case dependent? What is it? What is the outlook if I came through and was not successful?
Yeah, so if you came through and you didn't interview successfully, you are required to wait 1 year, 12 months before you can reapply. Your application actually unlocks after 10 months, so you can go in, you can update your information, and you can resubmit it. So then at that 1 year mark, it then reactivates, and then we can re-review your information as well. And I'll be the first to tell you, we have had many pilots who are unsuccessful on their first turn and then come back a second time and are successful at that point as well. So that is it's really tough, right, to not be successful, to not get hired initially. But like I said, we've hired plenty of people who've come through the process a second time and then are successful at that time.
Awesome. That's so good. So I've gotten a few questions. I sent out some notes on my socials, and I've gotten a few questions.
Sure.
I have one friend who has 7,000 hours, so a lot comparatively, I guess, a lot of hours
Hmm.
to the average person coming through. They've been flying 121 for many years, and
Sure.
they when they were in their early 20s lost their logbooks,
Hmm.
and that all the signatures are gone off and everything, and like
Hmm.
doesn't have it, has converted to the digital logbook, kind of made an addendum and things like that.
Yep.
Does that person stand a chance to get a job at United, or is there a workaround? Is there something that person can do if they have a problem with their logbooks?
Yeah, you might find this interesting, but that would not be the first person that has lost their logbooks. And so we've certainly considered and interviewed plenty of folks who have lost logbooks in the past for a variety of reasons. There's a couple of things you can do. I believe it's the 8710 form with the FAA. You can fill out. You can apply for a logbook restoration or a verification of your credentials. Bring that to your interview, and we'd be happy to consider that as well. And look, we also understand too, particularly here, even at United, right? A lot of longtime 121 pilots don't even keep logbooks anymore. So something that shows that you have the time and that can demonstrate to us that you are successful, and you've demonstrated that to the FAA as well. We will be happy to consider those as well. In the event that you've lost your logbook. If you have your logbook, obviously, please bring all of them. But if you've lost your logbook, again, you can go through that reconstruction process with the FAA and submit that 8710.
Yeah, I'll never forget when I was a brand new coach. I had a pilot whose house burned down, and
Wow.
yeah, it was awful. And
Yeah.
they literally brought their like ash of logbooks, and with the fire report and a police report, and they
Wow.
had communicated ahead of time. But like
Yeah.
they're like, hey, look, here's
This is
my
it. Yeah.
logbook.
Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do, right?
Totally.
But I think the moral of the story is get ahead of it. Like
Yeah.
I would think that person would want to reach out to the team first
Yep.
and be like, hey guys,
That's what I asked too. Yeah. So if that individual is invited to an interview, I would just respond back to that email and just give us a heads up and say, "Hey, I'm preparing for this. I'm doing what I can to make sure that I'm prepared for the interview. Just want to give you a heads up. This is what the story is, and they should be fine after that."
yeah, that's so good. Um, how about failures? I've talked to a
Hmm.
few people who have gone through 121 training and been unsuccessful and left the company.
Hmm.
And then they are trying to figure out. Some of them have been able to kind of like circumvent to go to like a 135 carrier or something, like
Sure.
found a secondary follow on thing. What does somebody at United on the hiring team need to see to think that person could pass United's
Hmm.
training and be successful?
Yeah. So we typically look at a lot of patterns, right? So have they shown a pattern of success in trainings after that 121 failure? Have they been able to upgrade? Have they been able to complete another initial training program? That is, I think, important to us, and also the recency of it as well, right? If it happened last month, that we might have to have a conversation about that. But if it happened a year ago, a couple of years ago. We understand life happens. People go through a variety of different things, and so have you demonstrated to us that you've been successful since then? That's what we're looking for, I think, in those situations.
Yeah, for sure. And that it's tricky. Training is always so stressful, man.
Totally.
I hate it. I've been miraculously successful, but man, there's not a person that's more stressed out. Every check airman ever is like, you need to calm down, bud. Like you just need to relax.
You're the one that's like sweating in the flight
I
deck,
am.
just
So much deodorant. Oh my
yeah.
God. It's funny, like, aren't you the guy that talks to everybody? Why are you so stressed out? I'm like, oh, so much at stake.
It's tough, yeah.
It
And
is
and
tough.
and we understand that too, right? Like we know that there are a few people who've been successful their entire careers and have had a very clean record, but that's not really the majority of folks, right? Most people
Right.
have had a slip up or something, and just the studying and the amount of time you put in to pass those check rides or those training courses is intense. And so, we do have a heart. We understand that life happens. We know what people go through, and so we take all this into consideration. It truly is the total candidate that we're evaluating here.
I want to encourage the people that self-discriminate themselves out from applying. Don't do that. Let Justin's team decide whether or not you should come in for an interview.
Absolutely, yeah. My recommendation is don't make the decision for yourself. We look at recency. We look at the type of failure it was. We've seen people who, they struggled to pass their private like 3 times, right? But then they've had a very successful career since then, right? And so, we would certainly consider that person because that could have been 10 years ago, and now you're flying for a regional, and you've passed captain upgrade. Like all those things are taken into consideration when reviewing a candidate's application.
I would also say if you've got something hard to talk about, or there's this unsurety that you have, or maybe there's something that looks one way on paper, but an explanation is worth a million words, and really that makes no sense. But an explanation is very helpful in the hiring process. It's probably worthwhile to go to one of the conventions and get in front for a meet and greet to have that conversation in person. Would you think that's a good idea?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's a variety of ways you can do that. Number one, on the application itself, there are a variety of areas you can disclose. You can explain your situation to us, and like I said, not some AI doesn't read that. We actually read it ourselves, and we make sure that we try and get understanding what it was. And our recruiters will be the first to call a candidate too and say, "Hey, this doesn't really make much sense. Like, give me some more detail if we have to." Right? Going to a conference, speaking to a pilot or one of our recruiters is also worthwhile. And then we have a variety of other ways you can contact us, either through email. We hold regular office hours with our recruiters on a pretty much bi-monthly basis where you can attend a session, ask your questions as well. So we do really what we can to inform the candidates and also to try and get a good understanding of what went on in their history as well.
If your team's going to call somebody, is it going to be from a Denver area code on their caller ID?
Most likely, yes.
Okay. I mean, it's really, if you call me, I don't pick up my phone, period. And if you call me, I know you're like,
Yeah,
it
right.
says your name, but if it doesn't say your name, I'm not going to pick up. But if I'm looking, like, if I get a certain area code, I know, like, oh man, I should probably check that out. It's Denver. Nobody calls me from Denver.
I get a lot of really weird phone calls too from probably scammers and stuff. But yeah, if you do see a Denver phone number popping up your screen, there's a good chance it's United Airlines.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, or they found your bag.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to bring it up, but you brought it up. Office hours. It's a relatively new thing that you guys have been doing. And you can always find it on my socials whenever you do one. I always put them on all over mine.
Yeah. Thank you.
Tell me what goes on with office hours.
Yeah. So I'll just be the first to say, since I've joined this team, one thing I've really tried to do is demystify the pilot hiring experience here at United. I think not just at United, but I think at many airlines, the pilot hiring process was this, this really deeply held secret where we couldn't talk about it, and everyone just had to kind of figure out on their own how to get here. And I really want to make sure that we're transparent, we're providing opportunity, and we inform candidates, if who wants to come to United, how to get here as well, right? And so one thing I've challenged my team with is providing these office hours and just going out and just providing some high level information, answering a few questions about what our process looks like. And so we've been trying to do them once every other month or so to be able to just spend an hour or 2 hours with our recruiters, with my counterpart in flight ops, to be able to just provide information, tell people how to get hired at United, and answer some pretty basic questions as well. Because I read some of the forums, I know what people are saying, and sometimes it's just like, what? That makes no sense. That is absolutely not what we're doing here at United. And so it's not just to correct the record, but it's to provide that experience and the opportunity for our candidates to know what goes on here. And I have to say, I think last time you advertised it must have worked, because we had about 600 military pilots that were on our office hours. So clearly the word's gotten out now.
My people listen to me. That's
they
true.
do, yeah. I'm impressed.
I'm impressed they listen. I mean, I'm thankful they listen. I can't even tell you. It's certainly, from my perspective, I started this show because I wanted to demystify everything, because as I was going through my process, it was the biggest uphill battle, especially not having people intermixed and that could kind of lift me up and help me know the way. And so that's important. And your generosity to, we've been talking for almost an hour, and you and I talk often to make sure that anything I put out about United is accurate, and anything that is helpful to you guys to advance the cause. Like we're doing it for the entire community. And I think that's fantastic. I also think that the office hours were an awesome idea. I think I do, we do a lot of webinars, and you've done one with me last year, and hopefully we'll do another one here again. And we're just answering people's questions and helping them know. But I love what you said, that you also read the forums. So y'all, I'm telling you, stay off those damn forums. And they're so toxic. And
there's some
don't
good
write
information,
anything.
but a lot of it is and literally that's why we had to do this, is because we want to correct the record on some of this stuff, because so I'll read something and be like, that's just not true. So it's really helpful to be able to have these office
I heard you're buying 200 Airbus 380s. So it's,
wow, yeah, that is news to me too. Wow. Secondhand too.
Yeah, the used ones. I think there's only 40 flying.
Literally.
Oh man. Well, Justin, I want to give you the last little bit of time, kind of talk about whatever you want to talk about. I want to make sure that I didn't miss anything, but I appreciate, gosh, this is just such good information, man. So I don't know, what are we not talking about that you think we should be talking about?
Yeah, I think just, finally just want to say that United's a great company to work for. I really enjoyed my time here. We have seen a tremendous amount of change in the last year in pilot hiring, as well as at the company as well. And I think just with the number of aircraft we have on order, the number of new hire pilots that we're bringing online, it's just going to be, I'm sure every leader of pilot hiring wants to be like, this is the place you should be, but I cannot think of a better place to be right now than United Airlines. Whatever experience a candidate has in their backgrounds, we would love to be able to consider you for a pilot position here. Like I said, the opportunity for captain positions, the opportunity to fly long haul international, on day one is something that we've never seen before, and I really hope that all of your listeners and everyone that's tuning in today would consider United Airlines, because you got a story to tell, and we want to hear it, and we want to consider you for a position here.
Justin Ritter, Director of Pilot Hiring, United Airlines. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for what you do for this community, and thanks for sponsoring all the big events, because the conferences are great, and I can't wait to see you at the next one.
Happy to do it. We'll see you at the next one. Have a good one.
This is important. Before you go, you need to know that 2024 is going to be unbelievably competitive in the world of pilot hiring, and you need to make sure that you separate yourself from the herd. The only way that you can guarantee that you'll land your dream job is by partnering with Spitfire Elite Interview Consulting. We are the only choice for application review and interview prep. We are the partners that you've been looking for from start to finish, and it's never too early to be part of our community. Just go over to my website, SpitfireElite.com, and use the coupon code R4P to save yourself 10% on all of our services. Again, that's the letter R, the number 4, and the letter P to save 10%. So go out there and slay your interviews.